Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. All right, everybody, we are here, episode 60. Wow, episode 60. Man, that's pretty cool. The big 6-0. I'm here with Justin Harmon. We met at a wonderful networking event, the Meet and Mingle. Shout out to Kaylee Bain of the Meet and Mingle event, or whatever we want to call it.
We love Kaylee.
We do love Kaylee. We were just talking before we hit record about the cell phone. And obviously, if you're, 12 and over, you have a cell phone. Let's cap it at 16, maybe. I don't know, man, whatever.
Dude, kids have cell phones at like 5 now, and they're nicer than mine.
Well, you probably need a better phone.
Tell Apple that.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a direct line? Because I'd love to talk to whoever's in charge.
Strongly worded email.
Strongly worded email.
I need a better phone.
In high school, for an English class in 9th grade, my teacher was like, "You're gonna write 3 letters in a professional, corporate wording and actually mail them." And I got nothing for mine, but I do very vividly remember this guy in the dorm, 2 doors down, Seb, I'm assuming it was short for Sebastian. He wrote a letter to Apple and got a free iPod. The old one with the 4 buttons up top. This is how long ago this was.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But still, that's pretty cool. I didn't get a free case of Gatorade.
I mean, it's basically the modern equivalent of DMing someone, but writing a letter is a lost art.
It's absolutely a lost art. I think the length is lost, the language is lost, the feel of paper. Most people don't even know stamps are even a thing.
Oh, I checked my mail the other day, and my neighbor was checking their mail at the same time when it looked like Santa Claus Christmas's mailbox. Like she just had stuff falling out of her mailbox.
Yeah, it's never important either.
No, absolutely not. It's all junk mail.
It's always junk mail. Yeah, I'm one of those people who work pretty hard to open the junk mail and find the phone number and call and be like, stop sending me the letter. You are burning trees. I'm never going to buy windows by Renewal by Anderson. I'm a contractor. I'll get my own windows.
I got a form I could send you today. Right now, where you could follow the steps found on the form, and you could eliminate 90% of your junk phone calls and 90% of your junk mail.
Well, you're going to send that to me after this podcast.
Look at me providing value already.
Episode
60.
Dude, you provided value from the minute we got coffee at Font. Yeah. But no, focusing on the cell phone, we were just talking about how because you and I are basically like kind of one man bands, everything's on the cell phone.
Yeah,
and everything,
absolutely.
and unlike some other people I know, like I interviewed Dustin, who runs All American Dumpsters. He's got two. He showed up. He's got a cell phone in each hand. One's personal and one's strictly business.
Right.
And I was curious about that, and his reasons, though don't apply to me, seemed very intelligent and very good for him. He was like, if I want to go on a vacation, I just give the phone to my lieutenant, and it's the work phone. If it rings, he picks it up. All American Dumpster. It doesn't have to be me. It can be him.
It's the bat phone.
It's the bat phone. Exactly. But I was very keen in what we were just talking about before we recorded, before I hit record, where you were like, so when I'm with my girlfriend, you mute your phone. Is that a standard practice for you?
So muting's a strong word. I try to do my best. Yesterday was not on mute, but I did do a great job at not getting up. Like I would just let it ding because we were in the middle of having dinner and stuff like that. It's in the other room. Like I can hear it, she can hear it, but it doesn't interrupt conversation. Just always, it never goes off when you want it to.
No.
Like it always goes off when you're in the middle of something. We were just talking about how, Monday through Thursday, I can make all of my calls. I can do everything right, check all my boxes, but it doesn't mean that somebody like has a home loan for me. It doesn't mean that somebody's buying a house. But man, I tell you what, when I'm getting ready to like end my work week, proverbially 3 p.m. on a Friday, holy shit. Everybody comes out of the woodwork. It happened this weekend. I'm literally getting ready to sign off. Nice day outside. Maybe it's, maybe we go play a little cornhole. Maybe we go grab some beer with the boys, like whatever it is. But all of a sudden, I got one realtor who I haven't talked to in a long time. Hey, got a client that wants to go under contract today. Had another realtor for me say, hey, I need you to reach out to this guy to run numbers on this house that we are looking at, that we are going to put an offer in on, and it needs to be done by, 7. Oh, by the way, I got somebody who wants to put in an offer tomorrow that I need you to get pre-approved. All of a sudden, it's 3 p.m. on a Friday. I think it's going to be easy peasy, but the phone starts ringing. Our job is answering the phone, and that's makes it's a double-edged sword. Because I can also take the middle of a day on a Wednesday and come record a podcast with you, or if I wanted to go get lunch with a friend, or if I just wanted to run around, being a one-man band is great. You work for yourself. You choose when your hours are, when you can be most productive. I mean, when a contractor or when a mortgage banker can be most productive, are two different things.
Yeah, like for me, I have, for the majority of people, post-COVID, there's been an extreme surge of work from home. Mm-hmm. But still, for the majority, most people go and leave their house for a 9 to 5.
Right.
So they don't want me to show up while they're at their job.
Right.
Most people are like, I need to take a day off because I don't trust strangers in my home. Whether I'm trusted or not's irrelevant. They don't know my sheetrocker's finisher,
right,
who doesn't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they want to be there. They don't want that dude just like chilling in their home, which I understand. But that also means that Saturday at 3 p.m, I might be bidding somebody's kitchen because that's the time they're home, and that's just when I have to do it. But you ask all of my subs when I'm like, guys, I really appreciate you coming here on a Saturday, and they're all just like, this is the job. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess I've been programmed to kind of, I feel like a lot of people have been programmed that it's like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then like all that other time you should never be working. You should always be doing like something else. You got to balance it. And you're right though. Like that's not the reality for us, but we get to do this Wednesday at 11. Right. Or for me, I don't schedule stuff usually before 11 a.m. because I like to wake up real early, spend a really long time like waking up, go to the gym in the morning, which you saw next door. Yeah. And like by the time I've taken a shower and gotten like some nutrients in me, it's 10:45, 11, and then I'm like ready to rock. I'm productive. I'm not tired, and that's just how I want to do it. But not everybody can do that. Some people want to be working at 7 a.m.
I do the same thing, man. Honestly, like people ask me what my hours are mortgage banking, and I basically tell them like it's usually like 10 to 7:30. Everyone like raises like a weird eyebrow, and they're like, "Oh, well, banks open at 8 and all this other stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, but at the end of the day,
You don't need a bank. That's a different thing.
But I still classify myself as a mortgage banker. I mean, at the end of the day,
for sure.
I mean, I'm an independent mortgage loan officer. But if you say that to somebody, a lot of people are going to look at you like you have three heads.
Yeah, it's a lot of words to basically say I can get you a mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So mortgage banker, it's simpler for people. But at the end of the day, man, my interest rates don't even come out. Like if you wanted to call me and you wanted a quote at 8:30 in the morning, I could kind of give it to you, but it wouldn't be exact. Interest rates don't come out until 9:30 when the market opens.
Okay, so this is something I know nothing about. So let's jump in. First, I want to mortgage banker. That's your title.
Technically, it is a mortgage loan officer.
Mortgage loan officer. Okay, so mortgage loan officer, for the simplicity of listeners, and let's be honest, me, you can get someone who wants to buy a house a mortgage.
That's what we do.
Your job.
We get them a home loan.
Okay, so my first question is, we say we're one-man bands. I have a license where I report to the state. Do you have like a boss that sees a lot of you guys? Like you work for a bigger entity, or are you just Justin Harmon LLC?
So I work for First Home Mortgage.
Okay.
We have a small branch here in Cary, and it's run by Mark Wooten. Great guy, 11 out of 10 human being. I'm pretty sure he was a Terminator sent back from the future to do nothing but help people get mortgages, because the guy is a phenom at it, and I'm lucky to be working for him. Lots of experience. He used to be at Truist / SunTrust for a long time, about 30 years with them, and then when they merged to become Truist, he saw a lot of the writing on the wall. A lot of things were becoming a little bit more difficult at a bigger conglomerate like that. So he found First Home Mortgage. And one of the things, not to segue away, but First Home Mortgage is really cool. And one of the reasons I went from US Bank, another big conglomerate where it's hard to do loans, to First Home Mortgage, it's a smaller independent correspondent lender. And what that means is it has the ability to pull from everybody's portfolio. Fun fact, as soon as we got there, I started looking up our programs, and all of a sudden we had all the programs that U.S. Bank had, because we have access to U.S. Bank's portfolio. We have access to Truist's portfolio. We have access to smaller lenders' portfolio. So when you talk about how you can, really tailor a mortgage program specifically to somebody's needs, if you go to U.S. Bank or if you go to Truist, you have what they have. Like those are your only options. Right. I have the ability to pull from all over the place to really get something that fits somebody's needs. The other really cool thing about First Home Mortgage is it's 100% owner operated. It's almost basically, imagine everybody in the company is a stockholder to a certain extent. Everybody is invested in making sure that the experience is as great as possible, because if we increase our share price, then a rising tide raises all ships.
Right. So you have
a vested interest.
You have skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have skin in the game, and that's everybody from the underwriters who review the file to the processors. One of the things that I got super tired of at a big bank when I worked for U.S. Bank is I was here alone a little bit. U.S. Bank doesn't have a great footprint here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's getting bigger in Charlotte, and I know they're expanding. But it was tough for me, especially because that's where I first started in the business, trying to basically teach myself how to mortgage bank in the middle of the pandemic, which was a feat.
Interesting
itself.
time.
But also, man, I'm a people person. Like if I have the ability to walk up to you and ask you a question, and you have the ability to answer it face to face, I'm going to get a lot more out of that than if I have to send an email, wait for somebody in Ohio to read it, and then answer me maybe 45 minutes later, if I'm lucky. And let's be honest, in this work from home environment, if everybody is working remote, man, at the end of the day, you really don't know if they're just playing with their cat on their couch or doing a load of laundry when we're actually supposed to be clocked in 8 to 5. You hop on the internet and you literally see things like, oh, this little device will move your mouse for you, to make your boss think that you're working. And that's a tough thing to get your head out of when, you know, you're trying to troubleshoot a whole bunch of stuff and everything else. So, you know, that's the other cool thing. First Home Mortgage has a presence here. There is a processor here, and she is fantastic. Candace, who is my basically closing coordinator, when I tell you that she's like my work mom, and I wouldn't be able to do half the things that I do at the level that I do without her, because I can just run into the office next door, ask them a question, and be right on with my day.
Yeah.
Like, it won't take years off my life.
When did you jump into this world?
Mortgage banking in general?
Yeah.
Like later part of 2020.
Okay. So you have no like frame of reference of the laxed rules versus the very tight rules, like before and after the 0809 issues.
So, I mean, I do. As a part of getting our license, it's kind of like a history course.
Right.
We got to go through.
But you didn't live it, was more
I know.
my
Fuck
question.
no, I didn't have to live that. Well, I mean, I'm 35 years old, man. Give me a break. At 08, I would definitely not giving people mortgages. I was 2 years out of high school.
Hey, you never know.
I was still NC State. And we still had a bunch of other careers that we had to do before we went to mortgage banking. And at a certain point, I take every one of those things that I've done, and, you know, we put it all together, and, you know, mortgage banking is kind of the perfect job after taking all those skills that I was able to compile from all of those other industries that I was in. All those other industries, between, you know, working in the oil fields and working in, you know, law enforcement and working in corporate America, I took a little piece out of every one of that and put it all together to really try to find something I was good at. And
what did you do in an oil field?
I was a drilling fluids engineer on offshore oil rigs.
Is that one of those situations where it's like they fly you to the rig and you work for 6 months, and then you get 6 months off, and then you get 6 months on and or is it 3 and 3 or something?
It's a month on and a month off.
Okay.
6 months would be absolutely horrid. But yeah, that was my first job out of college. So I got my degree from NC State, and I went to a career fair. NC State's very technical school, very engineering driven school. So they had a bunch of that sort of stuff. And it is 2010. The oil industry is absolutely booming. Even domestic oil is still just out of this world. They're hiring kids out of college with a modicum of common sense.
What's that Mark Wahlberg movie where it blew up, where the oil platform, like it's based on that true story?
I want to say something like Deep Horizon,
Deepwater Horizon,
or Deep
something
Water
like that.
or something.
I think you're right, something along those lines.
I never watched it.
I was about to ask you for like realistic clarity.
Man,
but if you haven't seen it, that's okay.
Yeah. No.
Because I don't know anything about oil drilling, or even oil other than like what we use it for, and then what I've seen in movies. And the only movies are that one with Wahlberg, where it's just drama and explosions.
Yeah.
And there's like an 8-second scene where Joe Dirt is working on an oil thing.
Don't forget Armageddon.
Well,
all of those guys were oil rig drillers.
Yeah, but that was the first 8 seconds, and you saw no oil stuff.
Well, we're bringing up Joe Dirt, we also have to give, you know, Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck their kudos too.
Well, they did save the world.
Absolutely.
Literally saved the world.
Now, I never did any oil drilling or drilling of any kind on any sort of asteroids before anybody asked.
I expect that was. Yeah. What do you mean you didn't? All right, podcast over.
Podcast
Sorry, guys.
over.
This was a mistake.
This was a waste for episode 60
mortgages.
For sure.
God, I was expecting an asteroid story. I thought you were Buscemi's dude who taped him to the rocket.
I wish. But I mean, dude, that job was cool. I mean, you know, I was a small town kid from North Carolina.
Isn't it really high pay too?
Oh yeah. It too much for
too much
for a 22-year-old.
Oh, for a 22-year-old. Yeah.
With no thoughts on, you know,
the future.
Yeah.
And then especially you basically like, even though it's not really like that, mentally you're like, oh, I just have a month vacation to blow all this money.
Oh, I used to describe it like that.
Right. But in fact, you like, that's not the reality. It's like save, pay some bills, all those important things. But at 22, we don't even know what an IRA is.
We have memories. We absolutely have memories from that couple of years. So I did that for like 2.5 years. And dude, at first it was great. More money than I had ever had. I'm getting to travel all over the place. Again, small town kid from North Carolina. I was, you know, on oil rigs off the coast of Houston or Houston. And then, going back to the next time I would go out to like off the coast of Long Beach, and then I'd be off the coast of San Francisco. Like I'm doing all these things and going all these places that like I would have had no other reason to go.
If you're so in that month that you're off the coast of San Francisco, is there ever like a weekend you go to San Francisco, or you're there for the month and you just get to wave at San Francisco from 100 miles out?
Yeah, usually you're there. Sometimes you get lucky. So every once in a while there has to be what's called a rig move. Mm-hmm. So we're done drilling. We're moving on out. They can't move the rig while everyone's living on it and doing it and everything else, because they actually have to lay a whole bunch of stuff down, compress a whole bunch of stuff, pack a whole bunch of stuff away. So every once in a while, if they had to do a rig move, man, we could have like a week off, and it would
inside your month.
Yeah, inside of our month.
Be back in 7 days when we move the rig.
Yeah.
Right.
Like meet back at the helicopter. They'd put us up in hotels or corporate housing or whatever it was.
That's a lucky moment.
Yeah. It had you were basically good for one like every third or fourth hitch, basically. So every 5-6 months you would definitely get a rig move, and it was great, because oil rig workers, when left to their own devices, are a fun group of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a unique group to even want, I don't know any, you're the first oil rig person I think I've ever met, but
it's not a big East Coast job.
No.
Yeah. But dude, on the West Coast, it's probably more popular than the military. As far as a job that you can, because, the job that I was doing on oil rigs obviously needed a degree and like needed training and that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of those jobs that like, basically you just start out as a manual laborer.
Right. If you're the rigger, you just need to know how to tie a knots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're literally out there like, I mean, they pay a guy like $78,000 a year 10 years ago when I was doing it, just walk around the rig, pick up trash.
Right. I mean, my buddy Ronnie, it's not oil at all, but he does 3 months and 3 months on, 3 months off, where he's living on like a boat that does filming with a submersible thing for like Nat Geo.
Right. Yeah.
So they'll like fly him to San Francisco. He'll get on this boat and he's just like the rigger. Like when they lift up the sub, he puts on like the third safety line.
Right.
And he's just like there, shirtless in boots, chilling, and he makes so much money and he loves it. And he's like, yeah, I do 3 months. It's hard. But then I get a 3-month vacation and I come home with these stacks of cash to my girlfriend and her family. And he lives in a small town in North Carolina up in the mountains, right on the Tennessee border. And he's just like, he's a musician when he's not on a boat. And he's a really good musician, actually. He's like a really talented guitar player.
Living the dream, they call that.
I mean, he has no complaints. And every time he's like, I got to get out of the boat world. I need like a normal job. And then sure enough, it's like a month later on Facebook, he's like heading out to the West Coast for another 3 months. So excited. I'm like, you're going to do this till you're a captain.
Yeah. I mean, who in the hell? I mean, I did 9 to 5 for a long time. Like, so got out of the oil field, went into law enforcement. That was also not 9 to 5. Did that for 2.5 years.
What kind of law enforcement are we talking?
So I became long story short, did the oil field thing. For whatever reason, the outlook for domestic oil production changed right around 2.5 years, 2012, whatever, and basically they started laying people off because they had hired so many. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I did not get laid off. I saw them laying a whole bunch of people off. I was assured that I was protected, but I was like, all right, is this really an industry? If it's going to be this volatile, if it's going to like just take a left turn because of who got elected or, whatever, then I don't necessarily know if I want to build a long term off of this.
Yeah. The security doesn't feel as secure all of a sudden.
Exactly. So, a buddy of mine who I had previously worked with through college when I was a bartender, he had wanted to grow up, and he went off and became a Chatham County Sheriff's Deputy.
Cool.
Right over here, right beside Cary where Jordan Lake is and everything. So absolutely loved it. And my dude came out and was just, Officer of the Year and got Top Shot, which was like their little award for like being the best marksman in the department. And,
nice. So
got
he
selected.
excelled.
Got selected to be, on their SRT team, which you're not allowed to say SWAT anymore. SWAT's got a negative connotation.
I don't know why. It stands for Special Weapons and Tactics.
Right,
I don't know why it's
So Chatham County had a CERT team.
Damn you, Colin Farrell, and your stupid movies. I actually love that movie.
I love that movie. The show's not bad either. Man,
I'm sure the show's terrible.
No, man, Shamar Moore does great in that show.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the dude from Criminal Minds who went to SWAT, the show.
I did watch Criminal Minds. Sorry. I watch a lot of shows. I guess I missed that
podcast
one.
over. I'm calling this one.
So if we have no Criminal Minds and no asteroids,
yeah, like we're done.
What are we
this.
doing? Yeah.
I don't really know. So, but he absolutely excelled. Got selected to be on their special incidents response team, CERT.
So SIRT.
Yeah.
So they just changed an acronym, but it's exactly the same.
Yeah. They did exactly the same. They just didn't have the same patches on their shit and everything else. So anyway, he was having the time of his life. And at the time, I was like, oh, I could go do that and have the time of my life too. Like, we're basically the same person. He's just about 5-6 years older than me. Got into it, went through training, got hired, absolutely in loving life. And then the one thing that I probably would have done differently when I went through law enforcement training and everything else, I probably would not have gone to work for a sheriff's office.
Okay.
My life could have been way, way, way different had I went to work for like a police department. Because police department's more like going to work for like a regular job. Like they can't just like, it's not as political. That no one's getting elected. Like, so it's one of those things where, it's just basically like a job where your job is to protect and serve, and they pay you for it, and anything else. Well, the big difference when you work for a sheriff's department, your job security literally is at the whim of the sheriff. It's kind of in writing. You sign something that basically says that you work at will of the sheriff. So, if you walk in, he doesn't like your mustache, or, shoes aren't quite as shiny as he would like, or whatever, technically he has the ability to say that you are no longer employed here.
Plus, North Carolina is like a no questions asked for job termination state.
Right.
So they don't even really need a reason to just let you go on the spot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, technically there are wrong for termination things that you can do, especially if it's based on like, harassment or, anything else or whatever like that. But like, this is literally something that they can be like, oh, I don't like you.
So that's kind of like the same thing where it's like, the people who serve at the office of the president. It's like if the president wakes up the next day and is like, I want a new chief of staff, he can just be like, you're gone, you're in, and done. I said so.
Exactly.
Whereas if you work for the police, you need to be like actually a fireable offense.
Right. Exactly. 100%.
The captain can't just be like, hate your mustache, you're gone.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. There's like reviews and stuff like
Plus, don't like captains. That's like, if you're the captain, you were a grunt and you worked your way up. Whereas if you're the sheriff, you got elected by the people. It's like a political office.
Right. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I will say that, the guy that I went to work for, Richard Webster, 11 out of 10 human being, great sheriff, served Chatham County well for a long time. I just happened to be employed there for like 2 years before he decided to call it a career.
Oh, and then the new guy came in.
So, and in the state of North Carolina, you are allowed to appoint your successor, especially if you're in the middle of a term. And then that person gets to be sheriff until the next election, as long as they're approved by the county commission.
Is that what happened? Did he appoint his successor?
He appointed somebody, and that dude just.
Did he clean house or
no? Not about cleaning house. He kept everybody, but the vibe was different.
Okay,
because it was a political position, and all of a sudden the gentleman who stepped in was in campaign mode.
Right, because you have to get elected now.
Yeah.
So he has to get reelected. Or he was appointed.
The feeling was that it became a little bit more about getting elected than the protecting and the serving.
Who determines, like, if I call 911, who determines whether the police or the sheriff show up? Your
location.
Okay.
So if you are, if if you were within the city limits of Raleigh,
That's the
RPD
Raleigh
shows up.
police, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If you are outside the city limits of Raleigh, but you are like, man, Wake County is Chatham County is easy because there's like Pittsboro and then there's Siler City. Those are the two only independent communities within that, or independent cities within that county that have their own police force.
Right. So there's just a line, and when you're outside it, it's the sheriff.
Right. Wake County is like,
it's a mess.
yeah, it's absolutely a mess. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That just means there's plenty of law enforcement because, I mean, there is no, like, Wake County sheriffs deal with places like out in Fuquay and stuff like that, like Holly Springs, like places where there are
not big enough for a police force.
Right, exactly. You're really not going to get a Wake County sheriff answering like a 911 call, like in between Raleigh and Cary and Apex, and because they're all so like their city lines touch each other. Right. Like it'll just be a Cary cop that shows
unless he was around the corner.
Right.
You would hope he would go just because that's their job.
Yeah, 100%. But as far as like how they make the determination who answers that call, it's really like when you call 911, it gets routed depending on where your phone number is, like to like a certain place. And
so it's already based on my phone number going to the correct dispatcher. That dispatcher's not like, where are you? I got to transfer you to the sheriff.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then,
what if you're calling from a cell phone? They're pinging that with GPS?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I kind of assumed that's how it was working, but I wanted to confirm. I mean, I have a cousin in law enforcement. I've never asked him this.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, they're still going to ask you where your location is and, that sort of stuff so they can make sure that they dispatch the right officer. But, if you call 911 here, you're not going to get,
No, I get Durham PD. I know. But
right,
then I've also gotten sheriffs at a rental property where I assumed Durham PD would show up.
Right.
And either we were just outside the line or he was around the corner. I don't know which. I didn't ask him because it was like 10:30 at night and I got out of my car with a Glock because I thought the neighbor called me and was like, someone's breaking into your house right now.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I'm on my way, and have called the police. Sure enough, it was my plumber doing some after-hours stuff with a flashlight. And I was like, James, you need to inform me.
This is the shadiest way that you could help me out, sir.
I was like, you need to inform me before you go to an empty house and go in the crawl space at night with a flashlight in a windowless van. Like, sorry, but that's a bare minimum of requirement. You can't just show up.
For real.
He was like, I just wanted to put the pressure test on. I was like, dude, I almost killed you. Like, and I would have been justified. I almost shot you before the freaking cops got here. And sure enough, like, the cops got there and were like, this guy says he's your plumber. I was like, oh, James, what are you doing here?
It's the best excuse ever. This guy says he's your plumber.
Yeah, right.
I'm his plumber.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, believable. Obviously.
I mean, his van's full of plumbing stuff, so yeah.
It's just a cover.
It's definitely a cover.
It's a well-placed cover.
Yeah.
But
so then law enforcement, is there something between that and mortgages?
Yeah. So in law enforcement, like, I'm happy that I did it. It's one of those things where, like, some people only do 4 years in the military and they're like, I'm fucking out, but we still thank them for their service. Like, I'm happy I got to see that perspective on life. For better or worse, like, law enforcement has a functional role in society. I absolutely think that I have a unique viewpoint because I can both agree with a lot of things that law enforcement does, and I can also say that a lot of them are dumb. But, like, at least I've lived that perspective.
Did you get to keep any of the gear?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I have one of the best cop Halloween costumes that you can fucking have.
Is that legal?
Don't tell anybody.
I didn't. There's only 4 listeners to this podcast. So
we love that.
We're gonna kill them before they can tell anybody.
Not any of the cool stuff, but like, dude, the external carrier bulletproof vesting that they give us is like literally molded to our bodies. So I was like, what the fuck am I going to give that back for?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
when the zombies come.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's the one thing that, like,
my tactical vest is not a plate carrier, so it's just for gear. So it looks cool, but it won't actually stop any bullets.
This one,
unless you hit the magazine full of bullets, that'll probably stop a bullet.
It's so funny. Like, very shortly after I stopped law enforcement, I stopped in, like, I don't know, call it maybe June, July. I know it was hot, but that very next Halloween, I had picked up, like, just this side jar at a bar, and I was, doing like security work for him. And they were like, oh, everybody can dress up.
I know what I'm going to be.
Yeah, so literally,
there will be no trouble at this bar during
I
Halloween.
threw on all of my shit, like, and I didn't have any firearm or like no pepper spray or whatever, but like I threw on like basically, tactical pants and the carrier and like the whole 9 yards, and there were absolutely people that walked up and like turned right the hell around. It was and like people were like, it's legit, dude. I was like, yeah, I know. They were like, that's
I
the
used
best.
to do this.
Yeah, they're like, that's the best cop costume I've ever seen.
You get to turn to every single patron and be like, you used to pay me to wear this with your taxes. Thank you for your taxes. Yep.
But man, at the end of the day, the politicalness, and I'm not gonna lie, protecting and serving is great, feels good. But
if you're actually protecting and
well,
serving.
Yeah. But it also, like, ain't nobody getting into law enforcement for the money.
That's for sure.
And at the end of the day,
well, if you are, you just don't want to make a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you want to get into it for the lack of making money, if that's the reason. So I wanted, I mean, I hate to say it, I wanted more. So
why do you hate to say that?
Well, because you're supposed to like answer to a nobler cause or whatever. But I'm materialistic.
I'm sorry. I don't think you should be as harsh on yourself. You did it not for one day. You did it for a significant amount of time, and you were like, my life, I want to do more. I'm not going to be able to travel to Italy on this salary, and I would like to. And I don't think you should be negatively. I don't think that should be a negative thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who change jobs because they want more, and they didn't do 4 years of protecting and serving or go into the military. Like me, I wouldn't even be allowed. They'd fail me on the physical alone.
I should have did what my buddy did. Still works for Chatham County. Still a law enforcement officer. Just went out and like married like the director of a hospital.
I mean,
I did a pre-approval for them the other day.
It's very easy to look at the past and dwell on it and wish you did things differently. I definitely fall victim to it sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But I think even regardless of who's listening and what your profession is, you got to look at the past. And I'm kind of paraphrasing my buddy Tom. You got to look at the past as less of like a negative beating yourself up and look at it from the perspective of you made choices in that moment based on the best information you had in that moment.
Yeah.
And
a month later, not a what if guy.
Right. Well, like a month later, a year later, 10 years later, you made a different decision based on new information. Mm-hmm. So you can like really get down on yourself and play like, oh, what if I stayed with that girl, or what if I moved there, or what if I took this job or whatever. But you just got to be like, look, I did the best choice I had in the moment. Now it's a new time with new information, new choices to be made, and you just kind of do the best you can, Otherwise, you're going to be the one who's eating away at yourself, thinking about all those past. And I've done it. I've been, I left California to come here, and I have no regrets about changing states, but I was going to invest heavily and become a pot grower in California. And if I had done that, I would be retired because I saw what my friends did and they're retired. And we're like the same. And I'm like, well, I didn't do that because I thought my family would disapprove.
Right.
In reality, they would have been happy at my business success.
Yeah, they would have been also retired with you.
They would have been retired with me. Yeah, sure. But, I could dwell on that, which I have for sure. Or I can just be like, okay, I valued that like family perception more than like I still care what my family feels about me now, but if I had a time machine, I would go back and do that. But I'm not going to dwell on it.
Right.
That doesn't get me anywhere.
And now we're successful contractors, so
yeah,
we really
exactly, and a successful mortgage broker.
Yeah,
you just wrote your buddy the sheriff and his hospital administrator wife a mortgage.
Yeah, like I wrote him a pre-approval, and he still got the same job. I mean, obviously he's gotten raises and promotions and whatever. And his wife just, she's a hospital director. So
well, she's probably making some money.
She makes an inordinate amount of money.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh man, when I was worried about not making enough money in this job. I should have just camped outside of a hospital like you did. So we
you would have fell in love with a nurse and they make nothing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I don't know
Terrible
about that,
idea.
man. Nurses make bank too since the pandemic.
Not
These guys
true.
are raking it in.
Not true.
Travel nurses.
Maybe they make a little more, but I'm telling you, it's not enough.
It's not hospital director money.
It's
that's
not enough. My sister-in-law used to be a nurse. It's not enough money. I dated a nurse for like a year and a half. It is not enough money.
Not for what they do, for sure.
It's a fraction of what they should be getting. They should be getting like similar doctor level pay. Maybe not identical, but like 80% of what a doctor makes, because in the reality, like when you're in a hospital,
nurses do most of the work.
They do all the work.
Yeah.
They do all the work.
Yeah.
Doctors walk in, they make some stupid. No, that's not true. I'm just upset. They make a very intelligent guess.
Yeah.
But then they tell a nurse what to do and they've got to do it.
Right.
It's like they don't do needles, injections, medicate. They tell a nurse to do it.
It's true.
They don't do any of it. They just like, oh, how you feeling today? Oh, 10 cc's of blah, blah, blah. And then some nurse comes and does it. It's like, especially my sister-in-law worked in the MICU. So it's like 47 machines and hookups to these unconscious people. It's like, it's hardcore. She showed me like a picture once and it was like, that's more complicated than the wildest electrical schematic I've looked at in my industry. I don't want anything to do with that.
That's a job I could not do, man.
No way.
No way. Nurses are too. Like, and everyone was like, "Oh, you saw gross stuff during law enforcement." Like, not like they do.
No. It's a different type of gross. It's also a different level of like, you get to approach somebody and it's gross, but you go into like immediate help to get them
empathy
mode and like, what do I do till the paramedic gets here?
Right.
Whereas they're the last resort. Like there's no like further,
right.
I guess you could go to the ER, but like it's not a lot further from like the nurse at Duke who's like trying to
still nurses there too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Still nurses too there too. Yeah. So moving back to being a mortgage lender, what was the push that made you jump into that?
Well, so we went from we went from law enforcement to we actually went to corporate America. We had about a 5-year stint working for CarMax.
CarMax. Okay.
Which is not, dude, one of probably personally and professionally the most rewarding experiences that I've had. Mainly just because it taught me so much.
Give me like the 2 best things you learned from that.
How to manage people.
Okay, so that's a big one.
Yeah, so at my height with CarMax, I managed like 150 people a day.
150, to clarify, customers or fellow employees?
Like just fellow employees.
Okay,
like,
so you were like the manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it was a very cool experience. But one that you absolutely had to
trial by fire.
Yeah.
You had to learn
I mean,
on the spot.
there's like 150 people that work in the store, and you're in charge of fixed operations for all of it, and then obviously not 150 people are there every day. So let's just say that you got 60 or 70 people in the store every day. But like at any given time, one of those 60 or 70 people could walk up to you and say, "Justin, I have a problem," and then all of a sudden, it becomes your problem. Like being the face that runs the place, being the person responsible for stuff like that, it causes you to have to be agile, causes you to have to be creative.
Times 150.
Yeah. And then you would still also, with what I did at CarMax, I was also the person that, like, if somebody was upset and they came in and they said, "Let me talk to the manager," like I was that guy.
You had to deal with all the Karens.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and in some of the cities I worked for, that was pretty impressive. I mean, I was in Orlando, I was in Boston. That's a different level of customer service that you have to elicit up there because don't nobody give a fuck.
Different accent for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And
Chowda.
And then Fayetteville, North Carolina was where we also ran a store. So that was interesting. But so the ability to manage people, and then also, I would say knowing what I do want to do and knowing what I don't want to do.
Okay.
Like,
that's big.
So, CarMax invested a lot in me over the, 5 years that I was there. And, I gave them back results and returns and everything else. But dude, in the long run, I did that for 5 years. And what I realized is that I didn't want to have that while I I think my problem was really that I care too much about my associates. And I know that sounds cliche, and I know that sounds like whatever, but you know, if you're going to manage, if there's 150 people that work at the store and you want to manage the way that that business wants you to manage, and I'm assuming that any Fortune 500 corporate America company is the same way, where you got a large group of people clocking in and out and all this other stuff. Like, in order to be the manager that they want you to be, you got to kind of be callous. You got to kind of be detached. You can't really build relationships with people, because if you start building relationships, you really care. And then you start looking at some of these corporate policies that don't necessarily fall on everybody's situation.
Yeah.
And, you know,
if you start caring, you end up being minus all of the terrible stuff. You morph into the Michael Scott model of The Office, where it's like you give two shits about these employees instead of what corporate is telling you, like, your numbers are not good enough.
Right.
Figure it out.
Right.
Like, I don't really care. Stanley's my friend. I'm not firing him.
Well, yeah, and you know, and there's a double-edged sword to that. But what I realized is after 5 years, when I realized that I could take all the positives that CarMax had taught me, like how to talk to people and how to treat people, and you know, what good customer service looks like, and how to be agile and how to be creative and all these things. And by the way, law enforcement and, you know, the oil field helped with a lot of that too. You know, again, going back to earlier, where taking all of these different skill sets that I, you know, adapted to a lot of different things. Man, I realized I just didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to have conversations with people about, oh, you came in 2 minutes late on Thursday, and then you clocked in 1 minute late, you know, yesterday. So now that's going to be so many points on your Chronos time card, when in reality, I'm talking to a single mom who's like trying to drop her kid off by herself, trying to get here by 8 a.m. every day. It's like, on paper, is it fair that you're late 3 times a week?
No, but does it matter?
but that's because it's on paper, and all it says that you're late 3 times a week. It doesn't say that 3 of those times was 8:01. And, you know, at the position I was in, CarMax wanted me to care about that. Like,
and you were like, look at her sales numbers. I don't actually care.
Yeah,
about
or
that.
like, look at, you know, she wasn't even in sales. Like, she was
or
like
whatever. Yeah.
I was just like,
making an example.
Like, I mean, I don't even care if you're like, I mean, if you're average at your job, it's hard to find good work.
It's true.
Like, if you're average at your job and you have a good story, I would probably keep you on.
For me, it's insane trying to find good work. And my subs, they're like, we can't find workers. My HVAC dude, he's like, our company has been hiring. We've had a steady we're hiring sign for like 8 months because they can't find anybody to like with a pulse to show up on time. I'm like, that's the bar? He's like, yeah, we need a bar. We need them to show up on time in their vehicle. I was like, it shouldn't be hard.
Yeah. You need to be able to fog a mirror and get to work on time right now. And
you'll get hired.
Yeah. It's difficult.
The bar is low. It's interesting for sure how companies were like, we have a choice. We can pay everybody a little bit more, or we can just charge the customer a little bit more and have service just drop 12%. And I feel like it never went back up. I feel like post pandemic, it never went back up. And it's like everything's still a little bit more expensive, and service is just atrocious everywhere, with the exception of my people at Talbert's Lumber. I got to shout them out. They are still amazing. I have no complaints, and every delay is never their fault. It's always like, look, they said it would be here in 4 weeks. The truck didn't show up. What would you like us to do? Call me when it gets here. I'm not going to yell at you. You did everything right. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I'll shout out Melissa O'Neill 100 times. She's the best.
Local businesses, man, I feel like the people that were able to like retain the majority of everything and keep it moving through COVID, I feel like their service levels hopefully didn't drop off, at least in my personal experience. It's like the big box places.
Yeah, the corporate stuff dropped. Like,
well, you know, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, just to use your contractor lumber analogy, like they definitely didn't retain all of their associates like through that. And now the people that they're hiring back, they don't care.
I went into Lowe's the other day. There were no cashiers. There were 5 self-checkouts and no cashiers. And I was like,
that's also wild.
I was like, wait a minute. There's got to be one of you.
Like, who's wearing the vests?
I guess they're unloading something. I honestly don't know. Like, I needed a pre-packaged vent cover. So it was like scan, swipe, leave. But I definitely took note. I was like, normally 2 or 3 of these non-self checkouts are open, all closed.
Wow.
There was one lady by the lumber
Checkout
door,
right.
and she was a real checkout lady.
Right.
And then there was one lady just watching 6 self-checkouts happen and no other one. And I was like,
Hey, they run it lean and efficient.
I was like, are we
guess.
just missing people? Is this vent cover free? Like half the time as a joke, I want to copy Sebastian Maniscalco and just be like, not my job. This is now mine. Gotta go.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
This is free. Yeah.
Like
you want me to swipe at Harris Teeter? I'm taking it.
It's like half the time they want you to make your sandwich now. It's like
I know. I have like learned. I used to bag groceries, so I'm very good at that. Like self, like I know the banana 7994. Like I could just do it, But it's
is it all the same banana number?
I know Harris Teeter's banana number. Yeah, I don't know. If
I was about to say, is that just the universal banana number?
I could be. I haven't looked. I don't really go to Food Lion, and there always seem to be people at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. There's no problem at Trader Joe's.
We're gonna test this theory at Publix.
We should, yeah. See what the code is.
Yep, I have a Publix right around the corner from my house. So
I think Publix could be one of the better grocery stores. Just period.
Publix is dank, man.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, honestly, the service. I'm happy they're broken into North Carolina because
pub subs are very good.
Oh yeah, absolutely, a complete total food group by themselves.
Yeah.
100%.
I used to get one every time I Instacarted food during the pandemic.
Right.
Because I'd like order stuff at 6 a.m. It would arrive for free by lunch. And I'd be like, well, let's throw on a sub. I have a hot sub waiting for me. Like, why not?
Living in Orlando and just Florida in general, where there's Publix on every corner, definitely spoiled me.
Yeah, I learned about Publix visiting my grandparents in Sarasota. So
when they first opened up that one in Cary, I was like a kid in a candy store.
And then they opened that one in Durham.
Yeah, I've not been to that one though.
I have gotten delivery from it, and driven by it, but I have yet to like go in. I actually went vividly. I remember going because it said it's open on Google, and I went there and it was under construction. And I was like, wait a minute, guys.
You bastards.
Yeah, it's not cool. Now I got to go to Whole Foods and spend more money for the same stuff.
Or Wegmans. That's another one that's breaking in down here.
Wegmans is good. Yeah, my brother, we have separate dads. His dad lives in New Jersey, and Wegmans is huge there.
Oh, yeah.
So that was like my intro to Wegmans. I was like, this is like a combo mall, food court, and grocery store, but it's all good and better. I was like, this is an interesting combo.
Their sandwiches are fucking dang too,
yeah.
by the way.
Okay.
But yeah, man, so going back to what we were talking about, got out of CarMax for all of those reasons, the service level, my ability to do my job in the way I thought that they wanted me to do it, and just my stress level, man. Like, I was taking work home with me way too much. Like, I was taking all those problems that people would give to me and just taking them home with me. And shit, man, I got my own problems. I got my own stuff that we got to worry about. So it was much healthier for me. I had a close personal friend who for years had actually been in mortgage banking and tried to get me to come be a part of the industry. And he's like, man, I know something you'd be good at. Would always just like be poking me. Like, oh, I know something you'd be good at. And finally, when I realized I wasn't happy at CarMax anymore, had a sit down with him. And I'm like, man, tell me why you think I would be good at it. And he's like, dude, because it's all building relationships. It's all talking to people. It's all going out, making friends, making people like, know, and trust you. He even told me, he's like, Justin, when you're first getting started, it's not even being about the best mortgage banker. It's about going out, being willing to find the answers to the questions that people have. But, your phone's got to ring. So you got to make people like you. And you have to, give people the security that you're going to follow through on your commitments. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. At the end of the conversation, especially people, when they're just getting started, they're like, oh, I never want to say I don't know. There's absolutely a way to say I don't know confidently.
Yeah, I'll find that out for you.
Yeah, I'm going to find that out for you. Guidelines may have changed recently. I definitely want to make sure that...
Let me double check on that. I'll be right back.
So, as long as you follow through on your commitments to getting back to people, like if I tell you I'm going to get back with you in an hour, I'm going to get back with you in an hour. Something that I picked up from CarMax, like building and setting expectations, little promises, building that trust. Like, I'm going to call you tomorrow at 4:00. even if I don't have the answer that we needed tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I'm going to call you so that I can say to your face or
I'm
over
working
the
on
phone,
it.
hey, I called you at 4, or, I told you I was going to call you at 4 o'clock. I'm calling you at 4 o'clock. I don't have that answer, but I told you I was going to call you at 4 o'clock. So you're still fulfilling promises. And dude, that just goes a long way. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's similar in my industry.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all the time. Even this morning, I shot the numbers from my tile guy to my potential mutual investor partner, and they were like, "Does that include the backer board?" And I was like, "Let me confirm that." I just texted Charles. 30 minutes later, he was like, "Yeah, that's everything. You just buy me the tile." And I was like, "Copy and paste to them. Like,
bet.
found it out. Here you go.
Yeah.
We just saved some money."
Goes back to how our jobs is very, very similar. So, I mean,
they are extremely similar.
It's about trust, man.
It's about communication.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you and I, in our respective worlds, we're a dime a dozen. There's a million of us.
Oh, yeah.
We are not unique. You have the same mortgage tools as John and Jane Doe mortgage lender, and I have the same literal tools and buy the same literal lumber as John and Jane Doe contractor. So why would you hire me? Why would you hire you? It's because we exude a level of confidence that resonates, or a personality that you can relate to, or a word of mouth from a trusted friend where it's like, "Oh, Justin hooked up my 3 buddies with great mortgages when they couldn't get approved, and look at their beautiful houses 5 years later. He's the one who can make it happen." Or, "Man, we had this problem. We couldn't figure out where to relocate this thing in our house, and Corbett came through. You want to call him because he'll figure it out."
Right.
And that weighs more than any advertising anybody could do, which is why I don't advertise.
Yeah, the best referral you can get is absolutely one from
word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And then, man, the other thing is, surprisingly enough, so I heard this about loan officers. Obviously, we're individually licensed with state, and, there's a national database of all that information.
Is that like a test?
Well, yeah. So there's a course you have to go through. There's like altogether, it's like 40 hours of training that you have to do, or 40 hours of actual coursework. Like there's practice tests, there's exams, there's all sorts of stuff that you can take to get ready for it. But then there's actually like 40 hours of coursework, continuing education every year and everything. But there's one big test. It's got like a fucking 80% first time fail rate.
The GC license has the same 80% first time fail rate.
Dude, GC, realtor, and the mortgage test are all just harder than shit, apparently.
They should just charge twice the money and make it more realistic. Like, if you just want us to fail to make us pay a second time, just charge double the money and make it an easier, like...
We've always just been a good test taker. We did not have to take the mortgage test twice, so we're happy about that.
I had to take GC license 3 times, and
I'm
I'm not even ashamed to say it.
That shit's harder, though. I guarantee that
the
shit's
code
harder.
book's 4 inches thick, man.
Yeah.
They let you bring it in. It's so big. They let you bring in the code book to look up code book questions. But guess what? You have to legitimately learn the correct way to look it up, or you'll run out of time.
Right.
Which is a whole other skill. Because if I told you, if the question was, what's the acceptable amount of distance for wood siding from the ground so that it doesn't rot, you're going to go into the code book and you're going to look up things that make sense, like rot, siding, ground clearance, maybe wood. You'll get nowhere.
Love that. Tell me where it's at.
Yeah, you've got to know to go look in the decay section.
Oh. Yeah, who'd have guessed that?
Exactly. You would, and it's right there, clear as day in the decay section. Siding's got to be this high, or it's got to be treated, 12 inches or 18 or whatever.
Right.
Super clear. But if you don't know that it's in the decay section with a bookmark, I mind you, you will run out of time on the test because you'll all day, you'll never find it.
Page flipping.
Yeah, so that's like a legitimate skill I had to learn at a weekend contractor test prep class that I paid to take. And they were like, we're gonna spend 6 hours on this. It's a big deal. And he threw us a bunch of tabs. He was like, start marking that page, write decay on it, because you can do that.
Right.
And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, and you're gonna need it. And I was like, okay. And I mean, you can't see the tab side, but that giant blue residential code book has got tons of tabs.
I love that.
It's a huge, ridiculous book. You get to bring in that big code book, and then the big spiral one is the law law in general contracting book. And you still like, they give you all that and it's still the most insane test.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends tell me about. I haven't ran into anybody that I've talked to that's had a whole lot of problems with the realtor test, but I've run into a couple of people that have had real big issues. I got a couple of friends, obviously they're general contractors, and they said it's harder than shit. And actually, one of them wanted me to try to take it, and I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, you honestly would have a much better job than any, or much better time than any contractor, because the contractors, the multiple choice, it's everything's multiple choice, but one of the answers will be the slang term you've been using your entire life building, and it'll be wrong.
Oh.
So they're really actually trying to trip you up. But you, who have never framed a day in your life and just were handed a pile of books and said, study that, regurgitate it on a test,
right,
you'd probably have, not probably, you would have an easier time, because you don't have a career of building and using the slang that we all use. You would just read the book.
But it's incorrect.
But it's incorrect. The slang term will be option C, and you'll click it, and you'll fail that question. And it's really annoying. Because you get the test back like a month later.
Yeah, with all your answers.
With all your answers, and it's like, dude, I've been framing my whole life. That's what we call it.
That's
like,
what it is.
That's what it is. And, you can argue, and you'll not win, and, whatever. Yeah.
And then you'll just go back and retake it.
Exactly, which is what I did. And, I never have to retake it again. I do my 8 hours of continuing ed every year. And, it's a stupid Zoom class where you can't get the thing to move the mouse because there's a moderator staring at your screen to make you can't even get up and go to the bathroom. It's insane. And you got to pretend that you're paying attention while they go over how to build a foundation. I'm usually working on other bids.
Yeah, precisely.
I'm like, well,
doing my actual job while I have to sit here and.
Yeah, normally I sit here in front of the computer, but I put the class on a podcast or on the iPad to the right, and I'll just mess around on the computer the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
So so I appreciate your story arc. I think it's particularly interesting for listeners who might be in a career that is not their favorite and are curious what a new career might look. And I'm not even saying because they should become a mortgage breaker. I'm just saying you did a really good job in your life of picking of keeping the skills you learned when you went to the next job, and then compounding and building even on those skills and acquiring new ones. And 5 jobs later, you're like, I have 4 other jobs worth of skills, and they're all applicable here. And I remembered them and worked on them. And now I guess I should ask, like, do you think this is your end career? Do you love it?
Dude, I absolutely love it. I've at different points in time. So going back to what you just said, anybody who's listening to this and is thinking about, going into a career change, you absolutely need to realistically consider it, because we touched on this earlier. I never wanted to go through life and say, what if? Using all of the pertinent information I had at the time, I made the decision that I did that was best for me. Some of them worked out. Some of them, I wouldn't say any of them didn't work out. I personally left every job. I've never been fired, never been let go or anything like that.
For the record, if you had, it doesn't. That's not the definition of it not working.
Well,
out.
yeah, but I made the choice for it to not work out in every situation that I got. I put myself into, and it's just because what makes you happy today may not make you happy in 3, 4, 5 years,
or even tomorrow.
Yeah, or even tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, you always have to be open to it. I feel like a lot of people, especially after they have a certain amount of time in a specific industry or something, they feel like they can't go do anything else. They can't go learn anything else. I would say always lean back on your strength being people. If you are a people person, then I would say that the world can absolutely be your oyster, even if you're not a people person, if you can fake it. Because at the heart of every industry, most industries are people. And if you can, learn to, manage people, if you can learn to talk to people at all, then there's a variety of different industries that can be, at your fingertips. So do your research, make sure that, I also didn't go into anything, half-assed. I had, before I joined US Bank, I did all the research there, about the bank, about the company, about the portfolio that I would have access to. I had already mined my kind of network to see who I already knew that was a realtor and reached out to them and be like, hey, if I'm just getting started, how much do you like me? How much business? Like, can you actually like I don't want to be poor doing this. You know, like be realistic. Like if you're going to go to a commission-based sales job, make sure that you can make your, make sure you can make your bills.
And yours is 100% commission?
Yeah. So
then zero base.
No
Your
base.
1099s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are, but it's, I also.
No, I'm not asking like that's good or bad.
Oh,
I just liking to clarify. Yeah,
I enjoy it because it's really one of those things where you can't, like if I want to take an afternoon and do a podcast, or if I want to, take an afternoon and go wash my truck or something like that, I can do that. I just know that the trade-off is I got to put in extra time someplace else.
Right. Or if you don't get to then complain about the commission you didn't get for the vacation you didn't take, for the whatever you didn't buy.
Yeah,
you
it's
have
100%.
It's all you.
Yeah, it's 100% on you.
It's like being a tennis player. If you screwed up, there's no one else to blame. 100%. It's not like you can blame your second baseman for the error if you're the center fielder. You got to just one team, one dream. In this case, we're solo teams. Yep. Or I mean, you have people on your team, obviously, but I know. I think we know what we're saying.
Yeah. And the thing is, and the last thing is, you said, do I think I'm going to do this forever? Man, I can tell you I enjoy this a whole lot. I can tell you that I enjoy this because of how it leans into my strengths more than I have anything else. The talking to people, the building relationships, the being able to help people, love helping people, and, being able to, get loans closed for people who didn't think they could afford a house, or at one point in time didn't think they could buy a house, definitely fills me with a sense of accomplishment, and it fills me with, a warm feeling in my tum-tum, so to speak. So, and the other part of that is it does allow me to have the freedom that I want to. It does allow me to do a lot of the things that I could not do before with a work-life balance perspective, because sometimes it is not possible for me to be productive on a Wednesday afternoon because there's just nothing going on. But
yeah, I mean, we've both kind of drawn up our lives. Well, we're fortunate in our prospective careers that specifically our schedule is a little bit more flexible.
Right.
But rather than conforming to the existing schedule and then having low points in my productivity and high points in my productivity, we have simply adjusted our schedule to be like, okay, or in your example, I don't really start till 10 because I'm not productive at 9:50. I'm productive at 10.
Right.
But then, like you said, you're working till 7:30.
Right.
A lot of people might not want to do that.
Right. But that's when people get off work and they can, talk about mortgages.
Absolutely. But for example, just for shits and giggles, my roofer would shoot me if I gave him that schedule. He wants to be on that roof at 6:01 before the heat. Right. He wants to be home at 4:10 to be with his 6 kids. And you know what? He should.
Right.
And I respect that. And I don't have to meet him at 6:01.
Absolutely.
I'll meet him the day before so he knows what to do at 6:01. And I'll roll up there at 11, or if he calls me with a problem. And it works perfectly. Yeah. But there's... I guess I said all that really to make 2 points. One, we're fortunate in our ability to make our own schedule. But 2, and I think arguably more important, is we took the time through trial and error to determine what is our peak production, what is our not peak production, what maybe our morning routine needs to be for me, if I don't get up every morning and get my butt in that cold plunge and work out, I am a terrible human. Period. Conversation over. I'm not as nice. I'm not as mentally flexible.
Yep.
And I wouldn't want to be around me. And to be honest, my parents are the ones who get that blunt end of the stick. And it's not fair to them, but they're my parents and we're here. But I had to learn that. I had to figure it out and be like, man, I need this every morning. Get your ass in that cold plunge. Get your ass in that gym. Make yourself better food. And by 11, you're going to be popping out of that shower, ready to rock. And rock could be a podcast, could be a coffee meeting, could be framing, could be supervising 6 subs, could be meeting a client for the first time. But I still need to be a nice personal person. I need to be at peak function. Yeah. I can't be, full of brain fog from beer the night before. Like, these are things we had to learn. And I think it's really fortunate that we took the time to figure that out sooner than later, because we could have just never figured it out, or figured it out when we were 50. And that could have really, put handcuffs on our career.
And man, I think the other thing that we're looking forward to is, where the future holds. I don't know about you, and it'd probably be something to be very interesting to go look up and find out about general contractors, because obviously business looks different. Supply chains and sort of stuff makes it harder to do what you do. Man, there's 30% less mortgage bankers today than there was the same day last year.
30%. Just people changed careers.
Well, individual licenses that didn't get renewed.
For what?
For mortgage banking.
But because they quit, or because they didn't do the continuing ed, or they found another job, or reason irrelevant. 30% less.
Reason irrelevant. And this is the reason it's irrelevant. And you may want to, man, if there's the same amount of work to go around, but there's just 30% less people to do it,
it's more money for you. It's
more opportunity for sure.
Yeah. See, for me, they're aging out. Like the old school, 65-year-old GC who's been doing this because his father was a GC.
Right.
All of a sudden, he's 75 and actually has to retire because he can't lift the plywood.
Right.
But his kid is a TikTok star and didn't want to do it. And that's obviously a random example of a fictional person. But across the board, people are aging out, and the same amount of people are not coming in. Trade school has been, Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs is big on this. Trade school has been all but shit on and eliminated, and shop class doesn't exist in high school. And he says the words, we arbitraged them right out of the curricula. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's the quote. And he's right. Like, I learned all that stuff not in school.
Yeah.
I had a pops and a mom with a shop bigger than this room, still in our house in Highland.
Right.
My scout troop built race car, like the little pine box, soapbox. Yeah. And then birdhouses. We built the, troop chuck box that was the arms came off it to become the legs, and we had the place to store the spices and the stove on camping trips. We built the shed for the church because the church was where we had our Boy Scout meeting, all of that. And then my architect father and designer mother were always putting an extension on our house. So if it was during the summer, I was just working with them, or if it was the school year, I would get off at 3:30 and they'd be there till 5, and I would watch or lend a hand. I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. But school failed on that 100% until high school. There was an opportunity for me to build sets for theater department.
Right. Yeah.
Jumped on that, loved it. And then in college, there was a class called Stage Crafts, which was the exact same thing. But it was a full credit 101 course where he taught you how to use a drill. Right. And he gave everybody a shitty pair of safety glasses. And I pull my nice safety glasses out, and I'm like, I brought my own drill. Can I use mine? They were like, yes, sure, go ahead. I'm like, cool. Also, I know how to use the chop saw. Do you mind? He was like, you can use it. Yeah.
You can do whatever.
Yeah. He was like, if you are wearing safety glasses, I don't have to watch you. I was like, I'm glad you figured that out day 3, because I could build this wall blindfolded with no help. It's
but it's, it's a lost skill that you have. And it's,
yeah.
Either way, man, I feel like, this kind of goes back to those people that you're talking about that are, could be struggling, listeners that are especially in our industry, man, the realtors are suffering, the loan officers are, not doing as much business as it was 2 or 3 years ago. The people aren't building like they were, 2 or 3 years ago. All of these things.
I tell you one thing who's not suffering, the tradesman.
Well, yeah.
My plumber has never been busier in his whole life. HVAC, electric, they are swamped. And for listeners who think that that's not a worthy job, you're just incorrect. He makes, $150K a year or more, and drives around in his own van with his own trucks, basically his own boss. Don't pretend that that's just because you didn't get taught about it the same way we got taught about being a YouTube star.
Right.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah. Man,
It's a very lucrative profession.
all those trade schools are.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as going back to where we are, I mean, nothing is as busy as it's going to be in 2 years. Like, the world does need time to reset. Like, we went through a lot. We're still going through a lot.
Yeah, if you look at history, like the boom, the best times in at least like modern economic civilization are always after the worst time. Like after the Great Depression, we had the most amazing economic uptick.
Exactly.
And same thing in like, you know, what that 08, 09 kind of basically a depression.
Yeah.
But
Same
like
thing.
2013 was incredible for the stock market, you know, and it took a couple
this
years.
is the same thing. I mean, we're in a recession. They're just not saying that we're in a recession. They're moving the goalpost and all the things.
Whatever.
And,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's you know, we're in a war with attrition with ourselves.
100%.
You know, if you can, there is light. There's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can make it longer than everybody else, then you're going to, you know, put yourself in a position to be successful. So that's what we're trying to do. There's still people out there to help. We just got to get creative in finding those people and creative with the ways that we're able to offer assistance to them. And it's going to take a little bit more hands-on approach. And it's going to, you know, man, in 2020, if again, I go back to this analogy, if you could fog a mirror and pick up the phone, you were going to do well because interest rates were 2%. But now
There's 7.
yeah, there's 7%. Nobody wants to move. Nobody wants a 7% interest rate. So you're already a commodity that people don't want. So how do you still, you know, find the ways to help people? Well, we do. You know, it involves a lot of communication, like you were talking about, a lot of asking questions, learning what's important to people.
So let's kind of do a fake one, because there's a lot of listeners who probably, you know, might not. What's that? Oh yeah, sure. We can pause it. Bathroom break, everybody. And we're back with a couple of empty bladders and a studio dog. Hello, Willie Bear. Studio dog is the best studio dog there is. That's for sure. So I want to more focus now on like what you actually do.
Yeah.
So not that what we've been talking about isn't amazing and your story is incredible, but now that we've gotten that kind of in the can, like for, I guess, I don't know, how do we attack this? So do you have a preference in terms of who you're working with? And by that, I mean existing home buyer or first time home buyer?
Mm-mm. If you're in the market for a house, man, we got a way to help.
You got a way to help.
Yep.
Okay.
And that, you know, that happens in a variety of different ways. I will say that everybody that's in the market for a house, I can't help.
Okay.
However, part of my job is being able to provide value. So, you know, hypothetically speaking, if you don't have a social security number, like I cannot provide you a home loan. However, there are people out there who, you know, want to buy homes and legally can buy homes if they have the means that don't have a social security number.
What if they just have like a tax ID?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I can't do tax
You can't
ID.
do tax ID.
I can't do
Okay.
tax ID lending. However, there are people out there that do.
And is
so-
that a choice or is that like a law?
First home mortgage, that's a rule. We do have to have a social security number. There's just different liability that goes into tax ID lending. And,
Who
you know,
made
you
the
have to-
rule?
I'm no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I
just,
guess I was more curious, like, is it the owner of First Home Lender was like, I don't want to deal with it? Or is like the governing body was like, y'all are not qualified?
I don't think it's a qualification thing. I think it's more of like there's an added liability. There's an added, you know, you have to do a little bit different things. They're not necessarily traditional type mortgages. And if you're basically a traditional type mortgage company trying to do tax ID lending, it's a little like different. It's just not what they do.
Okay.
So I going to Best Buy and trying to buy a pair of pants.
But I'm sure you probably have a Rolodex of mortgage people that you can reference them
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Like we have a variety of different people that we have, at our disposal that even if we can't help, we still get people pointed in the right direction.
And most people don't even come to you first. Most of the time they're talking to a realtor.
You would think. And a lot of times that does happen, but you know, I do a lot of, I do a lot of canvassing in the communities that I'm in to try to find borrowers who don't even necessarily know, or find clients that don't even necessarily know that they can buy a house. So I try to manufacture as many of my own leads as realtors provide to me. Don't get me wrong, realtors and contractors and, you know, divorce attorneys and things like that are huge referral bases for me. But part of this relationship that I think a lot of mortgage bankers or loan officers, however you want to call it, miss on is if you're just sitting there and taking your realtors out to dinner and taking your realtors out to lunch and, you know, sending them, you know, market updates through email and everything, it's good, but you're still waiting on them to have clients.
Right.
And you still have to hope that you're the one person that they're going to refer.
Right.
I like to do things like target the borrowers first and then get them when they're unrepresented and then try to send them to a realtor referral partner. Because number one, all the lunches and all of the dinners and all the books that I buy them or little gifts here and there or whatever, like you would do if you were trying to go after like a referral partner the way they teach you to traditionally, all those things are not going to match up to me giving you 3% of a $300,000 house, which is what a buying or seller's agent makes on their respective sides of the transaction, you know, 3 to 5% a piece. And so if I hand you that, you're going to be more likely to send me your business on the other transactions than not. So what I like to do is I like to canvas communities that I live and work in, run a lot of first-time home buyer workshops. And, you know, I'm getting ready to do one here in probably 3 or 4 weeks. It's going to be a veteran-specific one. So downtown, there's one company that has a whole host of veterans that work for them. I think 178, they said. And I'm going to go in and actually do a home buyer workshop and tell them all about VA loans, all about, you know, how they can use their disability, the fact that if they are a disabled vet, the fact that they are, they do not have to pay the funding fee on a VA loan, and basically explain to them all the ways that their VA loan can help them, you know, buy a house tomorrow. The amount of people out there that are making a $2,200 rent payment and don't know that they could absolutely, especially veterans who would get. So the reason why that's a cool thing is that, you know, they get 100% financing through the VA loan. You know, if they're immune from the funding fee, then they don't have to pay that extra money, which is great because that means they don't have to finance it. A lot of those guys do get disability that the next day, military disability can be used as income like the next day. And obviously they have a full-time job that we can use for income today. So it's not even like they need like the 2-year history or anything like that. So targeting that environment, if I I got 178 veterans that work for them, half of them show up because let's take out the ones that already own homes. Half of them show up, and let's say you only get 10 out of, you know, 80 people that want to buy a house. I mean, even with my takeaway, that's amazing. And then you start handing that to, you know, I have a couple of realtors who are, you know, veterans themselves, and I love like sharing business that way. And I know that they're going to be people that they connect with or whatever. So if I call up one of my realtor referral partners who happens to be a veteran, says, "Hey man, I got 10 veterans that are lined up at different areas," you know, some of them are going to be 6 months out. Some are going to be 12 to 24 months out. Some of them are going to be, you know, 24 plus months out. But again, they are transactions. We just have to get them there. Right. And then we work with those people. Hey, let's get your credit set up. Let's get, you know, let's find out what you want your monthly payment to be. Because a lot of my job is just, it's not necessarily hard. It's just asking questions. Right. And finding out the things that are important to people that maybe they don't even know is important to them. You know, talking to a gentleman the other day while I was pre-approving him, one of the very first things we ask is, you know, there's a couple of ways that we can attack this: monthly payment, down payment, you know, cash to close sort of thing, or interest rate. Like what is important to you? And he just, you know, he was gung ho on that cash to close number being as minimal as possible. And he said that was what was important to him. Well, then when we get to the the cash to close number to get it to where he wanted, at the end of the day, he wasn't able to really
do that monthly payment.
Well,
or whatever.
He wasn't able to afford the house that he wanted. And I was like, okay, so this is how we can kind of attack this. It's like we have to adjust what's important to us, or really not even adjust what's important to us. We have to decide what's important to us. If you say on paper that, that cash to close number is the most important thing to you, but you bring me this house and I run the numbers for you, and all of a sudden this house is really important to you, then obviously that cash to close number was not the most important thing. So helping people understand that, and then turning around and finding ways. That dude didn't realize that he was actually eligible for a $3,000 grant.
That's a nice surprise.
Yeah. So, and again, he just happened to be eligible for it, and we did the research, and again, we try to find ways to make the best deal possible for each individual.
See, for me, it was monthly payment. That's all I cared about.
Right.
So everybody's different. I was like, I would much rather give you a little bit more on a higher down payment and have this monthly be a lot lower. And they were like, we can do that.
And that's exactly what, asking all those questions, finding out what's important to somebody. I tell people my job is a whole lot like a tailor.
Right. How do you want it?
Yeah, exactly. Like we're going to ask a whole bunch of questions, and you're going to think that those questions are not necessarily as important, or that I'm, beating around the bush, or that I'm like just beating a dead horse, actually is more the terminology. Like, Justin, all these questions are overkill. No, they're really not. They're really designed to find out what's truly important to you, so that I can give you a list of options that really suit your needs.
It seems overkill because they're not in the industry.
Right.
But it's exactly the same with me. Like, for example, my plumber is been this client's save the day plumber for a long time. So when they were like, we want to redo our kitchen and enclose our screened in porch to make it not a screened in porch, like air conditioning, they were like, you need a contractor and you got to call my buddy Corb. So one day I get an email with plans. For those who are listening, that is never happened. Clients are never that put together.
They're ready to go.
Most clients call and they're like, what do you think this would cost? And then I have to go, what are we doing? And they're like, well, we just want to generally redo our kitchen. And I have to be the one who goes, do you own the cabinets yet? Do you have a cabinet style, color?
Just want to generally redo
what kind of appliances, backsplash, floor, without any decisions. I might as well tell you it cost a bag of fairy dust.
Yeah.
It's so stupid for me to even begin to entertain it. These people had plans, real plans, showing the electrical panel location, all kinds of great stuff. I was like, this is the client I want.
For real.
But then I go to meet them.
Oh, no.
And they forgot to put on their plans that they want to redo the entire kitchen floor. Guess what? There's a lot to demo a tile floor and a lot to put in a tile floor. Then they're like, oh, we actually want to not frame out this doorway. We want to rip it all out and put in a pocket door. And I was like, this is a load-bearing exterior wall. You have any idea? Now it's a header, probably an LVL. For those who don't know what that means, artificial wood, very strong, but exterior walls hold a lot of load, literally holding up the roof edge. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. And then the part that because it was a Saturday and I brought my girlfriend with me because we were going to go do something after. These plans show the windows one way. And then they're just completely well, I think we want to do it this way. And I'm like, well, when I threw you a ballpark estimate via email based on the plans, you just added 6 windows. Obviously.
And a floor.
No. I'm just talking about this area of the place. No, forget about the floor. Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I can do you one better. They asked me if I included appliances. Your face says it all.
Why would I have done that?
How do I know what kind of appliances you want?
Right.
Do you want the $800 fridge that's white that has the freezer on top? Or do you want the $3,700 Samsung fridge with Wi-Fi? How would I know? Also, please let me know the contractor that includes appliances without talking to you. How could that contractor Like, unless they're just including base level
Right,
appliances.
right.
Either way, no one's bought a base level appliance for their own home in ever.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
It's not a rental property.
Right.
This is like their house. So it's just like, it just was so crazy how quickly it went from like, these clients are so prepared, ready to rock. They paid before I even met them to hire a designer to get this floor plan drawing package. And then upon getting it and talking to them, they still just had almost no idea and did not actually have all the information needed. They didn't have tiles picked, all this stuff to actually give them a real price.
Right.
Yeah. And then I like followed up with them a couple days later. I was like, so do you want to like send me the upgraded drawing package? Do you want me to send my electrician and tile guy to do this, and that? Silence. No reply. I was like, okay. I was like, I know what I can do. I know my value.
Right.
So it's like, if you don't think that I'm capable, that's on y'all. Like, I tried to give them a designer to help pick the tile, pick the countertop, pick the cabinets. I was like, she even has a showroom. You can walk in and say, we don't want to look at the high-end stuff. We want to look at the middle-end stuff. Don't even try to upsell us. And she'll just show you the 6 middle-end things. But no. And it's like, okay, cool.
And some people, I do also, you know, the bad part about what we do is that people don't necessarily, because we're not taught how to do some of these things in school, like buy a mortgage or build things and stuff like that.
Do taxes.
Yeah, or do your taxes or anything. People don't necessarily have the appreciation for what it takes to do what you do or to do what I do. I get people that call me for a ballpark all the time. I'm like, guys, I can't.
It doesn't work that way.
I can't just give you a, like, they're like, oh, let me, you know, same sort of question. Somebody will call me on a Saturday. Oh, well, you know, we got your number from so-and-so. And, you know, here's the best thing. They always say they don't want to apply. Okay, well, if you don't want to, like, do my application, then I legitimately can't help you because I can't start anything. Oh, we just want you to ballpark some figures for us on a $500,000 house, and, you know, we make X amount of money a year. And
go to rocketmortgage.com if you want that BS.
Like, exactly.
That's not even usable.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, they can't support that any more than I can. Like, I literally had this girl who she called me, wanted to talk about affordability. Didn't even have a house that she was interested in. Wanted to talk about affordability. And I told her, and she was trying to go through, oh, well, you know, I make this much, kind of, like, you know, basically like, oh, I work overtime sometimes and all this stuff. And I was like, ma'am, you know, to be completely honest, you have, and she also, what was it? So she didn't know what any of her debts were. She kept saying, oh, I think I owe this much at this place, and I'm pretty sure that's the balance on this. And I finally had to stop her, and I was like, hey, we've been on the phone for 15 minutes, and I want to help you. I really do. But in order to best do that, I really do feel like the next step is to have you fill out an application. And she immediately responded back with, I don't have the time, and I don't want you to pull my credit. Okay. So a couple of things. You know, number one, it takes less than 10 minutes to fill out this application. Most of the work is done on my side, on the other side. And I said, hey, great news. First Home Mortgage actually has the ability to do a soft credit pull. So it's not even a hard credit. Won't show up as an inquiry at all. It's basically the same thing that Credit Karma does for people every single day as a continuous service.
So when anybody does a hard credit pull, that affects your credit score?
9 times out of 10, let's say hypothetically you have not been using, you know, a whole lot of credit, your credit score is high and everything. If you go in and have a mortgage company ping your credit score with a hard inquiry, it might impact it 3 or 4 points.
4 points. Okay, this is not a thing.
Yeah,
okay.
3 or 4 points. It's not really a thing. However,
I thought you were going to say like 60. I was that affects some people at the 600 level.
When people, and that is a double-edged sword, because when people who don't have great credit, who are, you know, applying for a Best Buy card today and applying for a car loan tomorrow and then applying for a mortgage today, like when that sort of stuff happens, that's what's going to impact your credit score.
Some red flags.
So it's all relative.
Yeah.
If you have crappy credit or historically not as great credit, and you run your credit a couple of times for various things, yeah, it's going to have a vast impact on it.
And if you have crappy credit, do remedy that.
Yeah.
Like I don't even, and I'm not even saying hire somebody.
Help.
Get your get an internet bill, put it in your name, put it on auto pay.
Yeah.
It works miracles. Put the water bill in your name on auto pay.
Right.
Get a credit card, buy one thing on it every month, pay it in full every month. It will work. This is not hard. Like, write on the credit card, buy gas on the first of the month. Like, it can be that stupid. Or like, I remember in college not even caring about credit, but I opened an Amazon credit card and bought only my stuff on Amazon for family Christmas gifts with that credit card. So the 6 months before Christmas, I'd be like, oh, that's perfect for sister. That's perfect for brother. Perfect for mom. Amass all these gifts, pay the bill in full every month. All of a sudden, in California at 23, I'm starting a company, and I'm like, I don't even know what my credit is. And they're pulling it. It's 780, 810. I was like, oh, sweet. I can open all this stuff.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. And it was like, I didn't even know that I was doing it.
Right.
But I was paying the bills in college for my apartment I was renting, and my roommates would just give me cash. But obviously, I was paying the internet in full. It was on auto pay. Like, you can't wait
Not
for
pay
the
it.
cat. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was just rocking my credit like day one in college.
Wish everybody did, man.
Well, I didn't even know what I was doing.
Right.
I didn't do it because I was trying to be awesome at credit. It just inadvertently happened. But now here we are at 32 plus and whatever, and we're trying to, give some youngsters some freaking advice.
Being awesome at credit is definitely a superpower in today's market. So.
It's similar to the internet, where it went from cool to a needed commodity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's now a thing. You can't really do much. Even if you have the cash to buy something, it's like not as good as having the credit. It's strange.
I ran into a person the other day, super well qualified to buy a house. Super well qualified. Plenty of money. No debt.
That's rare too.
No debt to the point where they didn't have a credit score. Isn't that wild?
Were they born 3 days ago? Like, I don't understand. Like,
no. So if you don't have
no car, no college loan,
so
I guess those don't count, right?
No, they do. They absolutely do. And by the way, just for everybody listening at home, September 1st,
I thought they didn't affect your credit.
Student loans, they don't affect your credit right now, but they absolutely show up. Like, they're all in forbearance right now. But that's actually what I was about to say. So student loans actually start accruing interest again September 1st, and they start making payments on October 1st. So if you have student loans, be sure to contact your representative to make sure that you know exactly what your schedule is.
Were they like on hold or something?
Yeah, for COVID.
Right.
Yeah, so they had put them.
I've never had a student loan, but I do now remember this.
Yeah,
my
so
girlfriend
student
still has
loans
them.
have basically been, man, if you graduated like after 2020 and you had student loans, you haven't had to pay them at all.
But they're still there.
Oh, they're still there.
Yeah, it's just been a pause button.
And that's going to be reckless for some people.
I am already thinking about how my fun funding for my girlfriend and I is about to get tighter, because all of a sudden she's going to have to be making that payment that she has had a pause button on.
Yep. But I would also say that for everybody listening at home, the reason why you should contact your representative is to make sure that you contact them about an income-driven repayment plan. So whenever you guys signed up for these student loans, anybody that has them, they agreed to a certain repayment plan. Mm-hmm. However, there are companies out there that you can contact about doing a income-based repayment plan. So, everybody thought they were, hopefully, when they got student loans, that they were going to have the most well-paying job in the world when they got out, and we're going to be able to take care of student loans and everything.
Sure.
Market being what it is, nobody's fault, but it's not necessarily, they're not handing out just $150,000 a year jobs right now. So it's, difficult for people. So they will adjust whatever payment that you are making based on your income and actually lower it if that is indeed the case. So,
and if you have a loan and you're listening, who do you contact about this?
Whoever services your current loan.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
So if it's PennyMac, if it's, what are some of the other ones?
I wouldn't know them.
Yeah, Student EDU. I just read them on credit reports all the time. So, but yeah, this young lady actually, going back to what we were talking about, did not have a credit score. But again, plenty of income, debt to income ratio is just as immaculate as you've ever seen, because it's only the housing expense, so it's super, super low. And she's trying to live within her means in the whole 9 yards, but we are simply working with her to get her a credit score.
Because she doesn't want to just buy a house at cash.
Yeah, well, she does not have the means to buy a house cash.
Okay.
What I mean is that she did all the right things. She saved her money, so she's got her 10% down payment. Not enough to buy it cash, so she needs a loan, but she's just kind of saved her money and stayed out of debt the old-fashioned way, and she hasn't had a trade line active. So a couple of things: she doesn't self-report her utilities, which is how a lot of people get around that. Like if you self-report your water bill to your credit report and stuff like that to help it build your credit, that can be something. But she's never had a line of credit.
Right, because she just hasn't needed.
Yeah,
she hasn't needed one.
Yeah, her parents gave her a car, which is not a problem, and she's still rocking it 10 years later. Good for her. She never opened a credit card.
Probably a Toyota.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Well, they last.
They do. So she had never had a credit card. But going back to what we were saying, as well qualified as she was, it does make it very difficult for you to do anything on the level of trying to buy a house.
Yeah.
If you don't have any credit whatsoever.
Is no credit the biggest hurdle that you come across?
No, debt to income ratio all the time.
Debt to income ratio.
Yeah, debt to income ratio.
And dumb that down. That's just like you've got more loans than money you make.
Not more. However, so a good theory is that your total debt to income ratio should technically not exceed like 43%. And what that means is we all make a certain amount of money a month. For some of us, it's different than others, but your total bills, and this is not talking about, I don't care, how much your Netflix subscription is. I don't care, that, your Chewy dog food is on, $20 a month auto draft or whatever. What we care about is like hard bills and bills that are actually tied to your credit. So
like your mortgage,
your car payments, your credit cards, your student loans, things like that. I will also say it's a new thing that we're combating, but things that also impact that are these smaller but high interest installment loans that people are doing, like the Affirm and Klarma and Afterpay and all these things where you can like go on.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
There's like short-term in-house financing now that like you can go on certain websites and they're like, oh, make 6 payments of $150 and get this thing. Like, so instead of you going to a store and opening up like a Best Buy credit card, there's actually separate companies out there now that are doing things that, mimic credit cards.
Oh, it's like a layaway.
But you get your stuff now.
Right.
But you're just making, 14 payments on whatever. So.
Yeah, I've seen this and didn't know that it was like a separate company and a credit involving thing. But I think somebody did this with like a festival ticket. It was like you could buy the ticket for $350 or you could send us 3 payments of 70 or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And they
got
did
it
the
for
3
everything,
payments.
man. They got it for like shoes, and I was on a website the other day that Amazon took, or that Instagram took me to, and they were like, oh, you can buy these pants right now, or you can like send us like 4 payments of $19. I'm like, why the fuck would I do that? And that sort of stuff shows up, by the way, on your credit report. So
if you need to buy pants in payments, you probably should buy cheaper pants. It's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, I also agree that people should live within their means. However,
that's not your job.
Yeah. Debt to income ratio is probably in this day and age what we're combating the most. And some of that is people being people. Part of that is the interest rates that we're seeing. So,
right, they are insane.
Yeah, so basically the debt to income
lower,
ratio.
Aren't they lower though than, I've heard a few people tell me that they're lower than like where they should be with projected inflation. And in fact, we had like a huge pause and they're getting to where they should have been if it wasn't for the COVID pause.
I don't think so, man. Before COVID, interest rates were about 4.5%, 5%.
No. I know what they were before.
Right,
I know
right.
what they are
Right.
now. I'm just saying that, like, it is an opinion of somebody, not
Right.
a fact in any way.
Right.
That somebody was trying to tell me that, like, this is where they should have always been. And it was just like we had this abnormal pause of lower ones for an extended period of time. And that's why it looks bad. But if you look at, like, if you zoom it out, kind of like looking at a stock.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's not, I will say that I don't know if they should have climbed because they climbed because we were experiencing inflation and recession type indicators based specifically due to the pandemic and all that printing of money and, you know, things that we did during then to get through. It's cause and effect, I do believe. I don't think,
yeah.
I don't think that
It's not
by
an,
any
it's not an
stretch of
organic thing.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that we would have been experiencing damn near 8% interest rates had the pandemic not happened.
Okay.
That is my personal opinion. Unless anybody's got a time machine and we can go back and prevent whatever outbreak that we did have. I don't know if we're ever going to know for sure, but
We won't.
yeah. So, but at the end of the day, from everything that I've been told, and obviously I kind of got into it during the pandemic, 2020. So there
Do you
wasn't a
think
whole
they're
lot.
going to go back down?
Of course they are. Now, that part,
Of course they are. You heard it here first.
well, I mean, that's like a weatherman saying that it's gonna rain.
Well, no, actually, it's very much not, because this could be the new low,
Well,
and 7% could be the most amazing rate 6 years from now when it's 14%. I have no idea.
Right. But eventually they will go down. Just like eventually it will rain. Now, projecting when that's going to be
Is impossible.
becomes a little bit more difficult. And the reason is because, man, like no time other in history, and I could actually fill up a completely separate podcast with this, which could be an excellent topic. But for the first time in history, interest rates are not following inflation. Inflation is on its way down. So inflation, the most recent inflation number for last month was 3.3%. It's down from 9.2% last year on a Fed target of 2%. So we are getting close. Now it's been like
how is that even calculated? Like who puts out that number?
the Federal Reserve. And it's based on a variety of different
Well, we've
things.
been off
It's
the
based
gold
on-
standard forever. So what do they know?
Exactly. So it's based on unemployment data, consumer price index information, which means consumer price index is like the amount of money it cost a consumer.
Cost of living.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, milk costs more this year than last year for sure.
Yeah, so lumber and shit like that. So shit it takes to build houses. So it's a confluence of all of that information that derives this inflationary number.
Dude, the roller coaster of lumber prices was insane.
Yeah.
I remember studs were $1.98.
Yep.
And then they were up to like $12.40 something at one point.
Man, if you had a truck of lumber, man, you were like basically.
I know
you were worth your weight in gold.
The memes of like scenes from Fast and the Furious, but they're jacking a Lowe's truck.
Yes.
I was dying.
Yeah,
I was dying. Or the memes of like a picture of like the dumpster full of scraps, and the person would be like, "I got 20 grand worth of lumber here. Who's interested?"
Yeah, exactly. No negotiations. I know what I got.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, or a picture is like 3 2x4s are in his truck, and he's like, $600. Anybody?
Yeah,
Anybody? Yeah.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Baby.
Hysterical.
Well, and then but the problem with that is, for a variety of different reasons, as historically, every single time we've had inflation, recessionary indicators, of course it's on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
So, interest rates usually follow inflation, but inflation has been on this downward trend now for 5-6 months at least.
The rates are not
and
going
the rates,
down.
for the first time in history, are not following that data.
Who controls the rate?
Federal Reserve.
So they control both, and they're just doing something different for the shit of it?
They are doing something different because the data is like, I understand what they're talking about. They're saying that they still
Make me understand.
Fuck man, I wish I could. Just because I understand the verbiage that they're using doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense.
Okay, touche. Fair enough.
So
yeah,
they are saying that because their target is 2% inflation, they want that 3.2% number to be 2%, and they are going to do whatever they need to do in order to get it there because they're being very hawkish on it.
And so now, like that's they're trying to get from 3 whatever to 2%, so that like milk goes back down.
Yeah, or hopefully, like, so that everything goes back down.
That's the concept.
Yeah, but in order to do that, they need to keep the amount of spending high, or they need to keep the cost of spending high right now because they're still saying that there's not enough. Basically, they're saying that spending is still too fast paced in the market.
Still too fast paced.
So
by jacking the interest rates up and making
money more
expensive, people will slow the amount of money they're borrowing and therefore slow the amount of spending. That's the concept.
Yeah. Basically, the easiest way to describe it is they're trying to slow demand to borrow money. And they're trying to slow demand to borrow money by making the money that much more expensive.
So that whole concept of like more money, more spending, keeping the economy flowing is thrown out the window this time.
Keeping the right amount of money flowing.
And they supposedly put themselves in charge of deciding the right amount of money.
Yep. And
cool.
They also put themselves in charge.
I love big government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing that kind of impacts us is, so the mortgage interest rates are also based on long-term treasury bonds. So the 10-year bond and the 3-year bond, they are nationally backed securities bonds. So obviously you can...
That people have with our government, or our government has with other governments?
No, that people have with our government.
Okay.
So you used to hear this back in the day, and if you were... if you bored yourself to sleep at night with market data and stuff like that, you'd probably still, kind of, at least have a cursory knowledge, but I'll put you to sleep right now. Basically, you have Apple, you have Microsoft, you have the stock market. Well, the U.S. government also sells commodities in the form of bonds. So technically, just like Apple has stocks, the U.S. government has bonds. It's those bonds that have been the gold standard and what interest rates have been based off of for years. So if the 10-year bond market yield is good, it's going up. That means people are getting more money for those bonds. It means it's going to push interest rates down because if that's what they're based off of. But right now, the yield on a bond for the United States is some of the lowest that it's ever been because people don't have any faith in the money of the United States. Finch's, I don't want to say no faith.
Low faith.
But little faith.
Yeah.
Smaller faith than what we had a while ago.
Right. Decreasing amount of faith.
Decreasing faith. And I mean, we've already seen this on an international scale. I mean, Finch's, who is a company who does nothing except rate commodities and things like that, recently downgraded the USA for the first time in history from a AAA to a AA plus. Now,
so still good, but not the best.
Yeah. And that does not, when they cite their reasoning as continuing inflation, continuing spending, like government type spending, like say what you want about the aid that we supply people, like
it's
love
a lot.
that, but it is a lot.
Yeah.
And
it always seems to come out of nowhere.
Well, because we don't have the money.
Right, it's not real money.
Yeah, it's not real money.
It's just cotton. We just printed a pattern on it.
Yeah, so I mean,
there's no gold to back it. We got off that standard
and
long before I was born.
And that's what's making it seem less valuable.
Because it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you just print it willy-nilly and you don't have any interest in, repaying it and everything. So basically,
But yet, oil is traded in dollars all across the world. Most people don't know that.
We are still very good, in a very good place. Being AA plus is not bad, and hopefully we'll be able to regain our ranking and everything. But yeah, the U.S. has been the gold standard for so long that we're never going to get away from that. At least not probably in the time that me and you are worried about it.
Also, did you know, just thinking of, like, I guess the English language is not like invented by America, but it's kind of our main thing. Did you know that if you're a pilot anywhere in the world, the language of the air, of the sky, is English?
I did not know that.
You have to learn it. So, like, if you're in Lithuania and you want to become a pilot, good for you, and you should. But you have to learn English. Like, all air traffic control is in English. All of it. Across the world.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because there's, like, I'm assuming there was a problem once upon a time when somebody from another country had no idea what the hell somebody was saying, and they were like, okay, we need to unify this, because
you would hope that they discovered that beforehand. But
I'm sure there was a very big problem.
Yeah, I was about to say, it does sound like one of those situations that would be a problem.
Yeah. Every time you see "do not eat" on something, it's because somebody ate it and they weren't supposed to. Like, this is not a preventative. Yeah. Anytime you see a sign that's like, "Don't do this," guess what? Somebody did it.
Somebody did it.
Got hurt. Now we don't do it. There's no preventative. Yeah.
Hot coffee story.
It's so hot.
It's so hot.
It's coffee.
So, man, we said all that to say that basically there is less faith
in America's economy.
Yeah, in the American economy, and less faith adds more risk. More risk, / more liability means that that money is going to be more expensive because the risk of you not repaying it from the people that you're borrowing it to is greater. Like, it's all. I cannot. I don't want to be that dude that's on a podcast and be like, it's all connected, man.
But it is all connected.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
There's no way that it's not, just like me building a house.
Right.
Like, it is very much all connected.
Yeah,
and if you got a problem.
Guys, just so you know, it's not that me and Corbett are assholes. The reason why it is more expensive for him to build your house and the reason why it is more expensive to me to finance your house is not our fault. We are playing with the cards that we are dealt.
That's true. And it's very difficult for, especially an older client who remembers life 20 years ago when they built an extension or something, and they're kind of have that price point in their mind. I got to go in and be like 25% more across the board.
Yeah, everything.
Like, the plumbing fittings are just 25% more. I'm not eating that.
Right.
Like, that's the world.
Yeah. Can
you afford your extension? Probably not now.
Right.
But I have to be the asshole who gives them the reality check of, like, $60,000 gets you 80% of what it got you a year ago. And you have to either give me more money, or we're building 80%, or what do you want to do? You want to chop 20%?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that one of the coolest things about my job, I was talking to somebody that used to work at CarMax the other day, is I've not actually had a conversation with an angry customer, angry client, whatever you want to, whatever verbiage you want to use, since I left CarMax. And it's because
that's great.
Anytime, why would you get mad at a mortgage loan officer? Because, you didn't get pre-approved. You didn't get pre-approved for the amount you wanted, stuff like that. My job is 100% basically just math, just basic math. Like, your debt to income ratio, what we were talking about earlier, is just your total amount of bills divided into the total amount of money that you make.
Yeah. Which is month. They're not your numbers. Like, you're just being told them.
Yeah. They're not my numbers. Like, these are your bills. Like, you went out and, accrued these things. This is your credit score.
I can't get mad at you because I went and ate out too much.
Right. And it is simply my job to interpret all those numbers and tell you, hey, this is what you are qualified for. This is what you can, get, and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if you do have a problem with my assessment, you can take them to any loan officer
and double check them
and
find out you were right.
Yeah, they're most likely going to come up with the same thing.
So now, okay, so Specifically in a residential loan situation, let's build a scenario. So my realtor, Stacy, whoever, a realtor, right? They get a person and they show them this like $400,000 house.
Mhm.
Okay. Whether we're doing this in the right order is irrelevant. I just want to ask. So Stacy is going to go, okay, well, can you afford the $400,000 house? And they're going to go, yeah. And then Stacy's going to say, where's your like letter from a mortgage, like anything, right?
letter.
So they're going to go get pre-approved.
Mhm.
Okay. So now they're talking to you.
Mhm.
Now, my question is, do you ask them how much is the house and we try to get you approved for the amount for that house? Or do you say, give me all your information and let's find out the max we can approve you? Which road do you go down?
Kind of the same thing. I mean, again, that goes back
No, it's not. I've spoken to too many loan officers who go very different on those roads. They're not the same thing.
Well, okay, so same thing, maybe wrong verbiage. It is not up to me. I'll put it to you like that. Because some people come to me and they say, I want a specific house.
Right.
And if you say you want a specific house, that's fine. We'll play around with the numbers that are applicable for that specific house. It doesn't change your numbers.
Right.
So basically, it really, to answer your question, it depends on the intention of the client.
Okay.
If you bring me an actual house that you want to make an offer on, it doesn't change the formula, doesn't change the math. It just means that we're going to get to the answer a lot quicker. Like if this is the house you want, I'm going to run all the numbers. I'm going to run the figures. I'm going to talk to you about your down payment. I'm going to talk to you about what's important to you. I'm going to do all those things. I'm going to walk through the same steps.
But if you got a client who's like, I don't necessarily have a house picked yet.
Right.
I need to know what I could spend.
Know what my budget is. Know what my affordability is. We're doing all the same numbers, but instead of, the only real difference is, hypothetically speaking, if we're talking to somebody who already has their house picked out and everything else, and I run their numbers and I say, all right, at this $400,000 house, your debt to income ratio is going to be 31. You're putting 5% down. This is going to be your loan amount, all those things, and this is what your monthly payment would be, This is what your interest rate would be. It's pretty much set for that house. And then I'll say, hey, does that all sound good to you? And they'll say yes. And I'll send you a pre-approval for that house with the address on it, with the sales price, with the interest rate that I quoted you, the whole 9 yards.
But it's garbage for the next house.
Not necessarily garbage.
Okay.
Those numbers still work.
Okay.
If all I need to do is change the address.
Okay.
Now, with someone who is just trying to find out their affordability numbers, we're going to run all the same math. We're going to run your debt to income ratio. We're going to get your credit report, the whole 9 yards. And then I will say, all right, the maximum amount that you can afford where we would get approved is $500,000. However,
what's your comfort level?
Yeah, what's your comfort level? Because that $500,000, just because you can get approved for it, means that your monthly payment's going to be this, means that your cash to close is going to be this. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And then
that's a huge part.
Right. And that's where, again, asking plenty of questions. What's important to you? Because maybe that monthly payment seems good, but that cash to close number, you're like, where the fuck am I going to get all that?
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. And you're just going to then be very stressed and tapped for your life of that loan and or the life you live in that house, which is a stress factor that you say goodbye at that point, and then they're just living in that life of stress that they didn't realize, like, oh shit, maybe $2,500 a month was too much. We should have looked at $1,900 a month because we're just really stressed and tapped all the time.
Great news, though. I'm definitely not done. I build relationships for the long term. I talk to everybody 3, 6, 9, and 12 months after they close their mortgage, and we continue that trend going forward to make sure that we're taking the right care of them. Again, we're not a transactional based company.
But what could you do?
We keep coming back to offer them assistance and information, and then advise them when is the right time to refinance.
Oh, okay. I guess I just blanked on refinancing for some reason. That's of course a huge thing.
Everybody needs to refinance. Everybody that's buying a house right now eventually wants to refinance.
Yeah, the second it drops 2 points rate wise, you should think about it.
Yeah,
at least 2. Yeah.
And so what we do, what I do personally, I don't know if everybody at First Home Mortgage does this. I was instructed to do this when I got here, and it makes complete sense. On every loan you close, put a calendar invite for yourself 3, 6, 9, 12 months after the fact. Call, check in on them, and simply let them know honestly, in an environment like this, fucking much of a great deal they got. Because if I'm talking to somebody that I put in a house 6 months ago,
The rates have gone up.
yeah,
up
they're
2.5 points.
yes,
since
they are thinking at the time 2.5 months ago, they were like, oh shit, these rates are so high and da 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 da. However, you call them 90 days, 6 months after the fact, and you tell them, hey guys, same house, 7% today, and we got you at 6.25. How good do you feel?
Score.
Yes, everybody has that.
Yeah.
Everybody has that.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has that reaction. Ain't no person that's like, oh, shit, well, we wish we should have waited and got 7%. That never happens.
Yeah. I refinanced, and my rate was the same, but I got in a better package, and I knew the rates were going up. I didn't know shit. My bond broker dealer brother told me,
There you go.
do it right now.
Right.
And I was like, basically, I kind of just said, yes, sir, because I don't really understand it. And he was like, you're going to laugh. He was like, go to Rocket Mortgage and just get it, print it out, and then send it to your current person and be like, this is what I want to do, and see if they'll match it or do better. And that's exactly what I did.
Yep.
And I went from a 10 over 30, which for listeners means 30-year mortgage. The first 10 years are at a fixed rate, which was a very nice rate. But at 10 years and 1 day, the rate now fluctuates with current market. So my rate would have been screwed. I would be, a year from now, when the 10 was up, at 8% or whatever. So instead, I converted from that 10 over 30, again, still 30 years, down to a fixed 15-year product. Same rate, but my payment went up like $200.
Right.
And I was like, that's very much still.
But you're also purchasing, theoretically, more of your house every single payment because it's a 15-year and there's more going towards principal.
Yeah, less interest payment. Yep. Also, I pay $900 on the $850. So I'm just throwing 50 extra bucks a month.
Right.
So the 15 years will be 13 years or whatever that is. I'll just pay it off a little quicker.
Man, there was a time like about 18 months, 2 years ago, where the 15 was such an attractive product.
Yeah.
And I mean, it still is if you can swing the payment. The problem is that the payments are still...
Now they're very high because of the rate.
Yeah, because the rate's so high that it makes a 15-year payment, which obviously takes your entire collective balance of your mortgage, instead of splitting it over 30 years, splits it over 15, which is going to make your payment higher. But hopefully that'll come back in vogue when interest rates start to fall. And there was a time when there's ARM products like we...
Yeah, I looked at them.
Yeah.
I didn't do it, but no. I definitely explored them.
So I have... probably have...
What's an ARM product? Because that one I actually do know, but for listeners...
an ARM product is exactly what you were describing. The 10 over 30, that's a 10-year adjustable rate mortgage.
That they call that the ARM product.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's and they also come in 3-year, 5-year increments. I have several people that are hooked on, or that we got on a 5-year interest rate like 2 years ago. Now, great news. The ARM products that we got them locked into, because of where they're at, they're in like the 4%. And those things do come with caps, by the way. So they can't raise over a certain amount every year, and they can't raise over a certain amount of the lifetime of the loan.
It
so
still can get pretty
high,
though.
It can still get squirrely, especially if you're comparing it with a fixed rate product. But got a couple of people who are starting to get concerned because they're like 3 years out, and they're like, oh, well, what can we do? And we're doing the math, and the highest that this person's rate's ever going to get up to is like 6.5% on his ARM product because of the lifetime caps.
Right.
Because of the specific product that it was. And I was like, actually, man,
don't do anything.
We don't need to do anything because even like it's maxed out at like 6.5%. So
to refinance to 7, you're
actually
actually going to lose. Yeah.
So we don't want to do that.
Wait till it drops down, then think about refinancing.
Right.
Yeah. See, for me, when I bought this house, even though I disagreed with my family, I turned out to be right, that they were like, you're not going to be here in 3 years. So your mortgage is irrelevant. Like, you're definitely going to be out of here before the 10-year. And I was like, I disagree, but okay.
Right.
Listening to everyone in my family is smarter and has bought houses more than I have. But here I am, like, rapidly approaching the 10-year mark.
Right.
And sure enough, like, I'm just now designing my next future/final age-in-place home.
Right.
And I'm not going to have that built and moved into that for at least, like, 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So, sure enough.
By the way, this place is beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've done like a significant amount of work, and the future work has all been canceled because all the money is going to the next house. This house is like, I've already done probably more than like its size and neighborhood will get me the ROI.
Right.
But also everything I did was mostly for me.
Right.
And I just was like, well, we'll think a little bit about ROI. But
Yeah, mostly this is for me.
But mostly when I redo that deck and Trek and pipe out the gas line to hook up to the grill permanently, that's for Corbett. I don't actually care if the next homeowner appreciates that. I grill twice a week and I don't want to change tanks.
They will absolutely appreciate it. Now, whether
The
they'll pay more
ROI,
for it,
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, but like, when I threw in that pallet wall in my master bedroom, I was like, this is not helping ROI at all. This is just for me. So, wow, 2 hours flies by real quick.
Shit, yeah, it does.
Before we wrap up, what's the easiest way for listeners to find you for their mortgage needs?
Man, if you search Justin Harmon, First Home Mortgage, I'm the first person that pops up on Google. Home Loans by Harmon is my Instagram. Please feel free to go check it out. Post, information about mortgages, information about the market, information about where you can find me. We're actually running a home buyer workshop September 13th at the Avenue in downtown Raleigh. I have a couple more coming up after that. I'll be sure to keep everybody apprised of. And at the end of the day, if you like to go out and network, you can probably find me at one of the various networking events. I'm always around. Obviously, it's where I met Corbett. Shout out to Kaylee again for bringing us together. Whoop, whoop. Man, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
We didn't really talk a lot about networking, but I don't care what industry you're in, rather, it's important.
Oh, and absolutely.
And it's really fun, actually, especially those ones at Bond Brothers. Like, those are really chill. And like, if there wasn't a name tag, it would barely be a networking event.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, the free drink tickets help as well.
For sure. Yeah, I like those Pellegrinos. Yeah. And as always, the Orange Hammer Podcast, we are on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. You can call me 845-489-6057 or email me, corb@wscg.com. And there you go, Justin. This was awesome. Thanks so much for coming, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye, everybody.